So you lose everything that's unimportant in life, and you just become more and more in the moment without actively having to try to be in the moment. It's just a natural process, and 1 week, 2 weeks in, you reach such a pure state of mind where so much strength is found and is possible.
Welcome everyone. My name is Caleb Hawkins, and this is the Backcountry Podcast, a show aimed at providing insight into the outdoor industry by interviewing people who operate within it. Sunn, do you want to tell people first why I'm not Nils and introduce them?
Yeah, so for returning viewers of the podcast, Nils is currently out of town, and we just so happen to be lucky enough that the Karel Sabbe team from Pacing the Pacific was in town for the premiere, so we figured as two of the filmmakers, we would sit down with the team and chat through their experience. Welcome, guys. How's it going?
Thanks.
Thank you. Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to watch the film on the big screen tonight.
Yeah.
I missed the first premiere and kind of bummed about it. So,
Yeah.
How was your first time in Utah? I think it's your first time for most of you.
For me it
before,
is,
but-
yeah.
I was here before as well, but not
Okay.
in Salt Lake City.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
We were in southern Utah.
What do you think of Park City?
We like it, yeah. So it's
Yeah.
fall now, and the colors are beautiful. We went for a run already, and yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, your Strava shows that you were back on the trail.
Yeah.
What was your first run after finishing the PCT?
Yeah, I think for 2 or 3 weeks I didn't do anything, and then I realized I was only going further downhill with myself. So I went for a half an hour run, and then I realized, just short runs were actually helping me recover faster. Yeah, so it was just an easy half an hour run.
Nice.
Yeah.
And Kobe, you decided to go on a big run. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, I went on a big run, but it wasn't my first run after being back from PCT. But yeah, a couple of weeks after finishing, I wanted to do an experiment and try if it would have helped at all to finish a 100-miler or finish it strong. And short, it helped mentally, but it didn't help physically at all. I was like a wreck the entire race, and so finished the experiment. But yeah,
For the listeners, Kobe paced over 1,000 miles when I was running the PCT. So we were curious, does that make him strong or weak after that?
I
I
think
would
it makes you
say
strong.
week short term, but for sure long term, this is gonna be a big boost. So yeah. But
Yeah.
it was fun. But yeah.
We should have introduced you guys because maybe not everyone has seen the film. Karel Sabbe is a dentist in Belgium who is also a very accomplished ultra runner. He holds the record for the Appalachian Trail, for the Via Alpina, and once held it for the PCT, got his record broken by Timothy Olsen, and this summer went back to reclaim his record. And so that's what our film Pacing the Pacific is about, documenting that journey. And it was the coolest thing I've ever been a part of. And it was a pleasure to witness you achieve something so incredible, not just pushing the human body to limits I didn't think were possible, but also I tell people it was incredible to see the way you did it and the mindset that you had, and most importantly, how respectful you were of everyone, especially your crew. So that was really cool to see.
Yeah, and so it was a supported record attempt. So the crew is so extremely important, and it was so nice to have such a nice crew lined up for this record attempt. Crew with experience, like Kobe was there during the traverse of the Alps as well. Henry, who was there all the time, traversed the Alps with me as well. Anna was there at the finish back in 2016 on the PCT and the last week of the Alps as well. So it helped that everybody knew it was going to be fun, but it was going to be hard. And as you realize as a filmmaker as well, you probably get into the project not really aware of how that is working out. And then you realize, okay, there's a lot involved in just having one guy move forward at 58 miles a day. So, but it was a super nice project. Yeah.
Yeah, we went into it with the plan of, with not much of a plan other than we'd get as many shots of Karel as possible with the understanding that he was not stopping until he got to the Canadian border, and you did not stop until you got to the Canadian border.
Yeah. Even at the places where I realized, okay, this would have been a nice shot if I would turn back 30 yards now and rerun if I saw that you did make it. But it was for the record, and I couldn't go any bit southbound. So
And we understood. We understood. One time we told Henry, like, we have a goal to never ask Karel to stop or do anything, and he just very bluntly said, well, he wouldn't stop even if you asked him.
Yeah.
We were like, oh yeah, that's good to know. I only introduce you as a dentist because I think it adds this normalcy to you that maybe not everyone knows, because they hear about your records and your FKTs, and they, you know, if I didn't know you and I heard about all your accomplishments, I would think that you were just this athlete that was crazy, honestly. Like, there's those people out there that just have a certain thing about them that pushes them to go further and farther. And I met you and was just so blown away. You are a father, a husband, you have a day job as a dentist in Belgium, and you still continue to do these feats that are just beyond impressive.
Yeah, for me it's just it has always been like a unique combination, and for me it's important that I still have my main job. I don't think I would be as strong as a professional runner, because then you start feeling pressure. Your family depends on your results and things like that, and I get so much energy from the fact that it's just for the love of the sport, for the love of the adventure. And it helps that I have a regular job, and when I'm out on the trail, it's just with so much enthusiasm and then so much as possible, I think. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because your training regimen isn't the level at which you compete at and perform at. You would assume that your training regimen is off the charts, but can you, I mean, we've talked about it in our interviews that didn't quite make it into the film, but can you talk about kind of that regimen of like, you just run to your office pretty much, correct?
Yeah, I had to be very creative with limited time. Was super busy at the dental practice. For me, these projects are important, these long FKT attempts, but not that important that I don't want to see my family for the 3 months leading up to it. So I wanted to spend time with my family in the weekends. So I had to be very creative in order to train for it. What I do is basically I rely on the fact that the last couple of years I have always been running. So I never had periods that I was injured, and I was always able to become stronger and stronger. And I do realize that my strength is at events where the mental part is big. So if I would compete at UTMB, for instance, with my training regimen, I wouldn't be able to compete with the best, because you have to be able to train 20-30 hours a week to be competitive at UTMB. But at the PCT and other races like the Barkley Marathons and things like that, the mental part is so big that the physical part becomes, it's still important, but it becomes smaller. And because those adventures are so special and important to me, and they are really what I want to do. It's these type of adventures that I'm strong at, and that I can be competitive with professional runners like Timothy Olsen, who held the record before me, or runners like Scott Jurek, who held the record of the AT before me, just because the mental part is so huge in such a long endeavor.
The interesting part of that mental side is that your family plays such a big part of it. We talked about it in Belgium a little bit, where, you know, you were saying like, it's so important to kind of have these offshoot training regimens because I get to spend time with my family, and with Belgians being such a family-centric culture. Yep. Can you talk about that and like the importance of spending time with them so you're not kind of like mentally distant when you're spending time during these larger events?
Yeah, exactly. So I think if you make too many sacrifices leading up to a record attempt like that, for instance, not seeing my family enough, then mentally I would already be drained even before having started the actual record attempt. So by the time I got to the Mexican border, I was only able to train 8 hours a week, which is technically not enough for such an adventure like the PCT. But mentally I was in such a strong place because I was so happy to be there. I had close friends and family that were going to support me. It's my favorite trail in the world, so I was 100% excited and ready for it. And if you stop seeing your friends, your family, the weeks leading up to it, if I would have issues at the dental practice because I wasn't working enough, then mentally I wouldn't be 100% ready. And maybe 10, 20, 30 days in, I would suffer because of that. So to me, being mentally 100% ready is more important than physically. So.
Did that kind of influence your decision making when you were kind of assembling your crew? Because it's all like Well, I'd love to get into this a little bit more because it's all close friends and family,
Yeah.
right, that are
Yeah.
involved in your crew.
Yeah, it's the crew that actually made me decide to go back for the PCT. So I think it was back in December or November that Kobe and Henry separately reached out to me saying, hey, Karel, because of the way we are working now, we would actually be able this summer to support you on anything. Do you have any plans? And then I was like, okay, already 2 close friends and good friends who would be able to spend 1 or 2 months with me on a project. That would be nice. Because for me personally, doing the PCT a year later would have been easier because I needed to move the dental practice. We were renovating the place. It was extremely busy. But then if I would reach out to friends in 2024 saying, hey guys, I want to go for the PCT, maybe nobody would be available. So it's Kobe and Henry who asked and who got me thinking, okay, yeah, maybe it's the year for the PCT, and then things started getting into shape. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Kobe, do you recall that?
Yeah,
Well,
Kobe, how did you
yeah.
meet Karel, and then why even reach out about telling him you're available?
It's well, obviously I knew Karel a little bit before the Via Alpina. Then I got involved with that project. We got to know each other much better, and then I know that in some of the conversations you hear other plans and reference different projects. So in the back of my mind, I was like, it would make sense that he would do something next year. So I was just curious to reach out. And I asked him the question, but I honestly didn't know that he was not necessarily planning on that himself until he then started to share the story that Henry and I had reached out at that moment. And I think it's a cool thing to hear, afterwards. So, yeah.
Anna, you told me recently that it was one of the best summers of your life, and I got to see firsthand how difficult it was to be a crew member for Karel and go through all that. But obviously, it was so worth it to you. Could you just maybe tell us what made this summer adventure so amazing?
Yeah, I think in general, how we all banded together. We were a very good team from the start. It was a lot of fun. I think we've laughed so much. And we've had difficult moments, of course. Certainly the desert was really tough on all of us because we had to try and sleep during the day in, I don't know, in Fahrenheit, but 40 plus degrees Celsius weather. The sun right on. So we couldn't really sleep, but we still had to take care of Karel. Karel was sleeping and then we were just sitting and waiting. But still, we had a very good atmosphere in the team all throughout. And then you just see how everybody is so willing to do everything to help Karel. And then notice Karel, who is very appreciative as well. He's not somebody that's oh guys, come on, I need this, or you didn't give me this or that. He's always oh yeah, he's super kind, friendly, and it really is nice to work for someone in that way. And just the views, the places we went to, we got to so many spots and we were we would never go here just in a normal trip, or even for you, I think, normal day-to-day life, you would not go to these remote camping spots. But the places were so beautiful, and everything we went through and every day was such a big adventure. So many things happened, and it was just awesome. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's I would say the thing that sticks with me from this entire project is just the level of commitment that you felt in the team. It's like Anna said, it's almost hard to describe. Well, it's just hard to describe how many things are happening each and every day. As soon as he started running in Mexico, the train was going, and we always had to make things work. And it's so cool that after a couple, let's say after a week or two, we figured out who had which responsibility, and then to see that come together every single day. And the things that we ended up doing, because last minute things changed. Well, never was there a day that everything went according to plan. And it was just, I have this vision of Henry on his bike, ready to go. And then he was struggling to get under the under the bar because the road was closed and stuff. But he was so ready to be out there. We didn't see him for the next 2 days, and there was never a moment of hesitation that he would be doing that. This was of course we're here for Karel. If this is what he needs, then this is what we do. And I don't know, I get goosebumps again talking about this. And I think it's such a warming feeling. I feel different things are possible if you have that energy, and I wouldn't have that for just anyone. It's not like, oh, I want to break the PCT and now I have a crazy ass team. You still have to you have to have a genuine connection to the project, to the people that are involved, and
I think that's what's awesome, because you were, as a filmmaker, so involved in the whole project Kobe didn't see the film yet, but we saw the film, and people see that side of the story so well now. And whereas in the past, people would say, when it comes to breaking a record, they would compare runners to me. Now immediately they add, and they will need a pretty decent crew as well, because they realize what's going on behind the scenes. And I think that will be one of the major difficulties if somebody wants to break our record, to find a crew that's so dedicated but also so smart in decision making, because every day you have to make a dozen of decisions. And the entire trip, we didn't have one missed meetup, not one backpack that was lacking a crucial item, it went so far, and that's resulting in a record that's extremely strong and solid, and that we are all really proud of.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes from Kobe in the film is, he says, "Never in my life have I seen a group of people come together like this, not at school, not at work. Nowhere have I seen a group of people come together like this." And it's so true. I witnessed it firsthand. You think about school and work, you came together so well because you were all doing it. I want to say for Karel, but you were doing it for yourselves because you just loved it. You loved banding together the way that you did. And then obviously, like you said, you wouldn't do it for anybody. It would need to be someone that you respected and wanted to spend time with and wanted to support. And I just saw that support from the crew to Karel the whole way through.
Yeah, it wasn't transactional, which was super curious. And it kind of came to, you see F1, right, where it's very transactional. It's super data-based. And not once did I really see you check your watch other than oh, where's the trail, And so it was very interesting to see that approach. And it kind of all came to a head in the High Sierras, right? It's 6 months of, what's this going to do? And we cover your side of it in the film. But I think what's interesting too, because crewing never stops, is and I'd love to hear what was happening on kind of your guys' end, because for the most part, it's, oh gosh, they're going out there. This is probably the most dangerous part of the trail. What's happening on the backside of it as well.
For me personally, when all the guys were in the Sierra, that was the most relaxing moment for me, because I could spend time with Karel's parents and Jack and just chilling a bit, which was also good after the desert.
Were you worried about him?
Yeah, a little. So Karel left, and then we had to run some errands, and then I dropped Henry and Kobe off, and I was like, bye guys. It was kind of, I don't know, it's like sending off your kid to school for the first day of school. Look like that. Oh, I have an amazing photo of the two guys all the same outfit with their backpacks on. It was very funny. But then I left and I just slept the first day, and then I kept checking the tracker, of course, to see where they were at, because I was curious. And then after my second night, so they were going to be gone for 3 nights, but after the second night, all of a sudden I get a message, "Hey, can you come and pick us up at this point?" I was like, oh fuck, okay. I get all my stuff, get food for them, jump in the car, drive this crazy dirt road. We've had some bad ones, but I think that was the worst one. We've had, I spent an hour on 5 kilometers of road or something like that, to get them. And then I saw them again after 2 days. I was so happy to see them again and to know everything was fine, because then I was really worried, did something happen to them? Did anybody get hurt? But yeah, Karel was just in a very good mindset. And then they decided at this point, okay, we can get off the trail. You can continue, keep running. Because with the 3 of us, it's good for the river crossings, the snow, everything. It's good to work together. But at a certain moments, they realized as well, we're also kind of slowing Karel down. So at that point, they decided, okay, it's time for us to split. I was so happy to see them again. And then, I think the day after, we just dropped off Henry again because he was spending the night with Karl, and then very logistically.
It's like each time that you thought like, oh well, we're gonna have a break, and then it's like, yeah, we got a little bit of a break, but then all of a sudden it'd be like, oh, now we need someone to be there in like so many hours, and then we do like some math. Oh, that means that we have to leave right now.
Also, the moment, first we decided, or I asked Henry and Kobe, can you guys join me in the High Sierra because of the difficult river crossing and everything. Was pretty intense for Kobe as well. But then the moment we decided, okay, I'm going to push on alone, then I think Kobe and Henry thought, okay, we can relax a little bit, and then they take the pass out, and then they have like the worst river crossing ever. Even on the PCT, we didn't have a river crossing like that, so it never ends, right?
No, that was like the one moment where like all the courage just sank into my shoes, and I was just looking at Henry, so devastated because I was so proud of myself of all the things I had done in the Sierra, and I was like, and now we're just gonna have this warm bed, and it's like we had to do like a 2,000 meter descent. It's like 6,000 feet, somewhere in that range, and we had like maybe 1,000 left, probably a little less, and all of a sudden we have this raging river, and I'm like, you have to be kidding me. But at the same time, I also was so deep in this mindset of, okay, if this is what it takes and this is what it takes, so what is the solution? And it was like, well, we're going to stay here for 14 hours and just see if the river comes lower, or we're just going to go back all the way up 5,000 feet and then take a different exit. And it's like, it's just funny how, this adventure also just shapes you and how you just put things in perspective. And it's like, there's no point in, maybe crying a little bit, and then it's like, okay, and now we get up and then let's do something about it. But that was so heartbreaking. But then there was Henry, so bad that he's so sad he's not here, but he got me across. Without him, I think I would have been
stuck there.
I'd like to talk about Henry for a second. It is
wizard.
Too bad that he's not here with us today, but he couldn't make it. But in the film, you talk about you were more hesitant at the very start to even tackle the High Sierras. Mm-hmm. And Henry just had no doubt. He just went straight into it. Henry is a badass.
Yeah.
Straight. I hope that in the film that is reflected and people can see how much of a badass he is. But could each of you just maybe talk about Henry and like what makes Henry who he is, and how valuable was it to have a crew leader that was just so committed, so fearless, and willing to do whatever he needed to do?
It was incredibly valuable. And I was going to say he's fearless, so thanks for also saying that. He just no doubt in his mind to do something. He's a big adventurer as well. He's done like crazy travels. He's not afraid of many things, I think. He enjoys it. And
I think it's a combination of being so optimistic and so happy to be out on adventures. And when you set out for a record, I mean, so many things are important, but also how consistent can you run about 58 miles every day? Like, you want to avoid doing a 70-mile day followed by a 45-mile day. And so in reality, it was always Henry deciding to hike to me with a tent and a backpack and everything that was needed to spend the night in the wilderness. And it would just not matter at any time how far he needed to hike. Was it 10 miles, 20 miles, 25 miles? It didn't matter to him. Were there tons of blowdowns, fallen trees, he would just be happily jogging along and setting up the tent and everything. So he was so optimistic and so valuable for the team. It was incredible. Yeah.
There were a couple of really funny moments with Henry too. We had really fun going into the High Sierra, and he was like the guy that, I mean, it wasn't, let's say he convinced me to join the two of you in the Sierra, but then I think we were in 10 miles. He's like, guys, gonna have to take the next exit. I'm like, what are you talking about? What? We haven't even done anything challenging. What? It was like I was completely caught off guard. It's like, what is he saying? And then we were looking at each other. I mean, we are more experienced in terms of running. Henry is like the fearless guy that really we needed to make those bold moves in the crossings. And so we were looking at each other, and it's like probably he's just either tired, he didn't sleep enough, he didn't eat.
So at the time we were shifting from nighttime into daytime. So we had a 20-hour day because we were going along. First we went through the night and then we went through the day as well. and he didn't eat enough. And so being tired and haven't eaten enough, he was like, I'm not able to do this.
turned off or something.
And then I was like, yeah, Henry, have this Snicker bar and you'll be fine. And he's like, yeah, I needed a Snicker bar.
And then after a good night of rain and our sleeping bags, we were all back ready to get going the next day. And it was like it didn't happen. And we just,
He said that like that night was the first night he slept really well.
Yeah.
And
Was that night it rained?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It's like,
Because it was
the
at
best nights
night.
ahead were in the Sierra.
Wow. I swear every other day or every couple days, Henry he always gave Sunn and I the game plan for where you would meet up with them, because obviously we wanted to try and meet up with you as much as they did or more. And so he'd always give us the meetup points, and every other day there'd be a meetup point, and he'd note on there how far the hike was to go in, or he'd tell me later that, oh yeah, it's going to be a 8-mile hike or whatever to go in. And I would just look at Sunn and we'd just be like, I don't know if I can make that. I don't know if I can make that, but it was so impressive to just see Kobe too, how far they would hike in to supply you. And I think that is, like you said, it's going to take a really dedicated crew to ever beat this record, because what they did was so impressive.
Yeah, but I think also, his mindset of Henry was also unique. Like whenever there was a flat tire, he was like, "Oh yeah, another challenge."
Yeah.
And he would be so excited to get it fixed and to get a crew on the road again. And it was
I think that was also one of the crazy moments. So for us to make it, the final stretch, we had to do a long drive. I don't recall how long it was because Henry basically drove it all the way.
5 hours.
And all of a sudden I woke up like, why are we standing on the side of a road? What's happening? And he was already fixing a wheel. It was like, well, we have to make it there in time. And then like, yeah, whatever. We have a flat tire, jump out of the car, fix it in like 10 minutes. And then we get going again. It's like he would never stop until we had a moment where we all started to fall asleep and nobody could drive. But that's really the only thing that
And one more thing, he also made the tracking website for people to follow along. And I've always found it a pity that tracking websites are difficult to follow or unclear and they don't look nice. And he took quite a bit of time to make a really nice one, and we got so many compliments about how easy it was to follow. We could send pictures to a chatbot and they were immediately uploaded to the tracking website, so people would see pictures of what we are doing, and that was such a nice part of it as well.
That was our lifeline, that website. Like, it particularly became interesting at the Goat Rocks, where we had completely lost service and we were waiting for you. We had hiked in the night before, hiked up Sunrise, set up our shots and all this sort of stuff. And we're like, we have no idea. Like, Karel could be here in the next 6 hours, 10 hours, or even 3 hours. And Caleb and I were talking. We were convinced that Henry called to the internet gods for us and turned it on just for a second, because we got this ping and it was like, oh shit, Karel's like only an hour away. And that was just such a big lifeline for us, because with how consistent you are, you could do basic math, but without knowing exactly where you were, it added to that logistical challenge of, okay, we only have 3 hours of camera uptime right now, and we need to be very selective. We just hiked in 12 miles. Like, we need to know when to turn the camera on, like, be able to hit record when he comes by. It would have been such a shame. And it happened multiple times where it was like, hey, Karel, camera's not on anymore.
We would not have the film that we have. I feel really proud about what we were able to put together, and we would not have the film that we have if it wasn't for Henry's tracking website. So, Henry, thank you for making that website, and thanks for being such an incredible character in this journey.
Yeah, but speaking of the website, he also, because in the Via Alpina, when they were trying to track Karel, it was another website they used. Sometimes there was no service, so it was difficult to check the website, or it was just enough service. So he made a bot where you could send the messages to, but we could also on Telegram, you could send a message like, where is Karel? And then we get like the map, and we could put it into Gaia where we had like the entire trail on it. And so we could see exactly at which mile point he was. And so we could see, okay, he's 3 miles away from us, so it's like 45 minutes, he should be here. And that was so useful for us. to see where he was, to know when he's coming, to prepare everything we had to do at the meeting points. And also in the desert, we're like, okay, we can sleep for an hour. Nice. That was also good to know. Yeah.
It's totally a time management thing. And it's crazy how something that you don't think is going to be such an integral part of this like whole planning process just ends up, it becomes your lifeline.
Yeah. Karel, I would like to touch on your mindset throughout the PCT, but FKT attempts in general. I really love what you said in the film about when you're so focused and doing something, when you're pushing yourself to the limits, it causes you to be so focused that all the worries of life really fade away. Could you just talk about that? And I, on the filmmaking side, felt that. It was the most difficult most difficult project that I've ever shot. And at the end of the day, I felt so satisfied because it was simple, and all I was consumed with was getting shots of you, and I just felt like that was reflective of your reason for doing things like this.
Yeah. So that the biggest lesson for me was back in 2016 when I set out for the first time for an FKT of that length. So I have a trekking, hiking background, and I realized, hiking gets you in a very peaceful state of mind. But I did realize when I was running the PCT back in 2016 that it's even stronger when you are searching for limits and where you're going digging deep day after day. And so 2016 was actually almost totally a sufferfest. But in hindsight, I realized, okay, there's so much beauty in going to set out for your limits, and then that pure state of mind where you're just focusing on running. And to me, it still feels like reconnecting with what we are supposed to be doing as humans, or what we were supposed to be doing as being hunter-gatherers and running. And you feel that when you are running a trail that's that long, you just so much part of nature, and your mind calms down. And I always see it as when you lose all your fat reserves, it's the same process mentally. So you lose everything that's unimportant in life, and you just become more and more in the moment without actively having to try to be in the moment. It's just a natural process, and 1 week, 2 weeks in, you reach such a pure state of mind where so much strength is found and is possible. So when I run 60 miles day after day, it feels so natural and so nice. And when you reach that state of mind, then much as possible. And that's why I'm always able to set such a strong record on such a long FKT.
Does that mindset impact your decision making not to listen to music? Because I feel like listening to music or podcasts or whatever it is such a big part of runners, but you choose to not do that. Do you think it detracts you from that?
Yeah. It's just every now and then I would listen to it if my mind was racing too much. Like, for instance, when we got to Washington State and we started hearing about wildfires on the trail, my mind was racing too much, and then it would help to just listen to music or even classical music. But like 98% of the time, even during training as well, I'm just using running as a way to calm down. And life is hectic and busy enough. So when you are out running, I just like to really come at peace with myself and listen to the sounds of nature. And it started out in the desert at night, the night sounds. Kobe remembers it as well. That's such a unique experience, and it would be a waste to be listening to music at that time. Also, especially when we were sharing miles together with Kobe and Henry, we're just talking and talking about life and just running together in silence, and that's more beautiful than each being in our own zone with music and podcast and things like that. So
it definitely deepens the connection that you share on trail.
Another element to the film that it really came out naturally, I didn't really need to force this part of the story, is the support that was shown to you from Thru-Hikers for the class of 2023. Yep. Everyone on the PCT, they'd see Sunn or I with the camera, and they immediately were, are you filming Karel? And then they just wanted to know everything about how you were doing, if they were going to get to see you, and if we told them that he's going to be here in the next hour or so, they would stop, they'd wait, they'd like want to see you. Except I always tell them like, just keep walking, we'll catch up to you. But they were so excited, and could you just talk a little bit about the support that you felt from other hikers?
Yeah, and I felt that as well, and it means a lot to me as well. I don't want to be regarded as the guy who's just out there for the record and for personal reasons. They knew me a bit from my past, and they appreciated my mindset going into running the PCT. And it was so nice to meet Thru-Hikers. So it took a while before we started catching up with them. But then when we were camping on the trail and there were Thru-Hikers there as well, it was so nice to share experiences with them and to hear how they were doing on the trail. But it felt so nice to me to be accepted as part of the class of 2023. And we all struggled in the Sierra and we all struggled in the heat. And it's so nice to be part of it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And how was it as crew members? You encountered a lot of people, and I would assume you had more time to speak with Thru-Hikers because you weren't running like Karel. How was it meeting just so many people along the way?
It was very interesting, and the same thing with you. They're like, "Oh, are you here for Karel?" Like, super excited, like asking us a lot of questions. Certainly after the Sierra, like, how did he do the Sierra? And like, he did it in 7 days. And like, what?
Oh no, we carried them all the way through.
Yes,
that was one of the stories that was alive with the Thru-Hikers. They were like, and he only slept 30 minutes. The guys carried them across the river stream, or you carried us across. I don't know what it was again, but it was all these funny stories.
We dug his cat holes.
Yeah, we dug his cat holes. Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't.
Yeah.
A lot of rumors going around.
Yeah, and they're like, how is it possible that a guy can just run so fast? Because of course they're comparing to what they're doing, but we always say like, he doesn't have to put up his tent, like he doesn't have to carry like this huge backpack, he only runs for the running vest. Like, it's a lot more simple way of going through it than what the Thru-Hikers do. And I also have like immense respect for what they are doing, also for Karel, obviously. But it's completely different. And then they're super surprised, like, how does he do it? And they compare themselves, like, don't compare yourself to him. It's a completely different sport that you're doing. But yeah, it was also funny, like some moments they're like, oh, can we get a selfie with you? And I'm like, why? Why with me? Like, Karel wasn't even there. Like, I would get if it's like with the group, and I was like, yeah, sure, okay.
People love meeting the crew as well.
Yeah.
I saw that. They loved meeting anyone that was involved with the attempt. I want to talk about Washington. You had a pretty seamless, obviously the High Sierras was tough, the desert was tough, but then you have this lingering possibility throughout the rest of the adventure that you could encounter wildfires. And it becomes apparent when you're running through Northern California and Oregon and you see how much burn area there is, and at least for me, I realize, wow, like there's so many wildfires happening every year, and then you start getting nervous. It's a very high possibility that there will be more that shut down the PCT, and I don't want to give away the film to give people incentive to watch it, but what did the possibility of wildfires do to you mentally?
Well, I think, so you guys came over to Belgium to shoot some interviews before. I think I was already openly saying, okay, there will be wildfires. The chance of not having wildfires is so small. But the problem was up until finishing Oregon State. So we went through California without wildfires, through Oregon without wildfires. And Washington is known to be a pretty wet state. So I made a mistake of thinking, okay, this might be the year of being able to do every single step on the PCT without any detour. And then, of course, 2 wildfires happened. But yeah, of course, it didn't come as a surprise because the PCT is 2,650 miles. The chance of one wildfire happening is so high. So yeah, I did need at least one day to cope with it, or to realize, okay, we will have to do a detour, but we discussed it with the crew and we found a way to approach it. We weren't going to talk about it anymore and just as we approached the closure, they would brief me, okay, hey Karel, it's a 100-mile detour or it's a 50-mile detour. My biggest fear, honestly, was that the trail would be entirely closed, because that happens sometimes as well. When the fire is too big, they just close the PCT and there are no alternatives. And that would have been less than 100 miles from the Canadian border, which would have been so difficult to handle. But so at first there wasn't any official detour, but 1 or 2 days after the fire started, the PCTA came out with an official detour. So I was really happy, okay, I can run every single step from Mexico to Canada, and there will be a detour, but at least I don't need to get into a car or skip a section entirely. So yeah, I take pride in the fact that this was a very difficult year to hike or let alone run the PCT, with the record amount of snow in the High Sierra, with these wildfires and a 100-mile detour that was needed to be taken. So yeah, I'm just proud of the fact that we actually succeeded anyway, and were able to set a strong record regardless. Yeah.
And to contextualize like the 100-mile detour, like I didn't realize that the PCT was so well maintained. And that's something I'd be interested to talk about in a minute, of like how the PCT manages to like maintain all these trails. But the detour was a mess.
Yeah.
Like so you were running what, an average of like 4 miles an hour,
Something like that.
How, like, just to contextualize it for the viewers, like how much did the detour slow you down? Because like you had to search for the trail for a while. It was.
Yeah, it slowed me down a lot. I think the detour itself was 100 miles for 50 closed miles of trail. But I think I wasn't able to get over 50 miles when I was doing the detour, just because, I ran the Barkley Marathons 3 times. I know what difficult terrain is, but at some points I was just bushwhacking. I was supposed to be on trail, but yeah, I think maybe 5 people go through that trail every year. So it was very much overgrown, and I was getting my legs scratched up entirely. And yeah, even on the section with Kobe as well, I think he can confirm that.
Yeah,
It started off pretty okay, and then suddenly you go down to maybe a mile an hour or even slower. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I had really gotten used to just like to put in comparison, like on the Via Alpina, there's very little signage. It's a lot of times very hard to tell which path you're going down to. And so you have to rely on your watch a lot. But on the PCT, at some point, it was like, well, I didn't load didn't have the opportunity to load my tracks. But usually it wasn't that bad at all, because it's so obvious. Like you say, it's so well maintained. It's this beautiful trail. And then all of a sudden we hit a detour, and then it's like, well, we should take a right here, but there's literally just no trail. And that was like a really weird moment, because it's such a big contrast. And also we thought the first time, oh, we just missed it, let's check again. But then we checked a couple times, it's like we generally don't find anything. And then we started to get a little worried, and also like how does it make sense that we now have to like we've gone so far, and now where's the trail? That was so
and
weird.
then people from back home were getting worried as well, because they saw that the tracker of Kobe and I going back and forth trying to find the trail. And on the tracker website you could see the trail going up to a pass, but on the field we couldn't see the trail at all. But to me, that's one of the unique things about the PCT, and why it's my favorite trail in the world, and why I decided to go back. So the whole community involved around it, being trail angels, the Thru-Hiker community, and then the maintenance of the trail. So it's a historic trail in the United States. I think it has the same protection as national parks. So I don't think it has its comparison anywhere in the world. So the standard of the trail was so high. Of course, there are often fallen trees, but so many times the trail crew would have gone through, and they would make some steps if necessary. They would clear trail, clear fallen trees. So yeah, it's just a unique trail, and it's a pity that we don't have anything like that in Europe. But yeah, it's for me a reason to come back to the United States, because yeah, it's something unique. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, in Belgium, we talked about how in the future you said you wanted to give back and eventually become a trail angel, right? Would you want to do that on the PCT?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, somewhere in my mind, it's like one of the really nice ways to begin a retirement is just to spend one summer with an RV, following along with the PCT Thru-Hikers and just giving them cold sodas and ice cream and things like that, and just slowly hearing their stories and getting to know special people. So yeah, that would be nice.
Before we close, I'd like to do another shout out to the last crew member, which is your wife, Emma. Like we've said, everyone was willing to do anything and everything just to achieve the ultimate goal, which was get Karel from Mexico to Canada. And I think Emma is a great example of that. And I would assume you spent the most time with her throughout the throughout the project. So could you just speak a little bit to Emma, her role of keeping Karel fed? It was very impressive, and just talk about that.
Yeah, well, Emma, obviously, she's been there for the AT part of the first PCT, the Via Alpina, other endeavors Karel has done that are a little less known or a little smaller. So she knows really well what he needs in terms of food, and she just was cooking every stop, like bacon and eggs, beans, we got hamburgers, we got mashed potatoes with bacon, with veggies. But because Karel is so busy with like a ton of things at a meetup, which is like 10, 15 minutes usually. So he washes his feet, puts on new clothes, fresh shoes. And in all that, he also has to eat because he has to eat like 10,000, 12,000 calories. So Emma would be feeding him. Because otherwise, he's like, okay, taking a bite and then like talking and discussing things, doing other things. And just Emma was like almost force feeding him. But it did help, I think. None of us was going to do that. That's one of the things we wouldn't really do, except Emma. That's really, like she said in the movie, it's like wife duty.
Yeah. I thought it was, honestly, from my perspective, it was endearing because like, yeah, it looks kind of silly. She's spoon feeding him, but it was almost, I got the vibe of she was like, my husband needs these calories.
He does.
He's not going to get them unless I do this.
Exactly.
And so she was doing it out of necessity. And I thought it was honestly really beautiful. Just the confidence that Emma has in Karel.
Yeah.
Throughout the whole thing. It's like, she just has no doubt that like, unless there's something out of your control that happens, there's no doubt that you'll get it done. Yeah. And I thought that was really cool.
One of the nice parts about Emma, I mean, of course, she's super supportive during the whole process of training for it and trying to make it work to go for a record like that. I mean, even if I try to keep it balanced in life, there's going to be a huge impact of going for a record like that. But another thing that's really nice is you often want your close ones to actually push you forward. And yeah, I think other close people would be saying, oh, are your feet hurting? Oh, take it easy for a bit, or maybe do a bit of a shorter day today. But Emma's like, yeah, she's helping me to push. That's during the AT, the PCT, but also at the Barclay Marathons. She makes me go further, and I'm super grateful for that as well, because that's what I need often. And
that reminds me of one time before Karel came in, Emma was like, okay, we're gonna wash him because he hasn't showered in a long time. And so Karel came in and Emma was like, Karel, we're gonna wash you now. You're not gonna eat first. Like, you're gonna wait with eating and first washing, then eat. And I was like, oh no, come on, I wanna eat. And Emma was like, no, because if you eat, you won't want to get the shower. So get in here. Like, we washed him. And then afterwards, he was very happy that she pushed him to get a little bit cleaner.
She knows what's best for him.
We were all like, oh, come on, Emma, let him eat first. She's like, no, I know him. Like, if we don't do this first, we won't do it anymore. So she knows you and she knows how to.
Yeah, she would definitely say and do things that we wouldn't be comfortable doing. Yeah. It's like, maybe we'd be like, maybe Karel, what about a shower? And then like you'd be like, yeah, no time for a shower. It's like, okay, no time for a shower, it's fine. But Emma would be like, no.
You stink.
You smell. Yeah,
that only happened once, right? So.
Yeah.
I know that I could sit here and talk with you about this all day long. and we have been. Last night we were talking about it. And, we're having a premiere in Salt Lake City tonight of the film, which will be really exciting. Kobe hasn't seen the film yet, which is exciting.
Can't wait.
But before we close, I wanted to ask you all if there's anything that you wanted to add, or that you want listeners or viewers to know about this adventure, or just about something maybe you learned about yourself, or anything you'd like to share.
Well, I think I'm really grateful that there's a film made about it, because when I got into ultra running, it was more of a personal challenge. I needed it to get out of my busy job, and then I realized how nice it was to be out there in nature for such a long time doing something like that. But then as I got older and did more and more, I started getting more and more messages from people how the story was inspiring them, and they would say, okay, I started running because of you, or I had a difficult moment running, or even just in life, and I saw how you cope with difficulties. So even though I'm not the type of person who likes to be in the spotlight, I do find importance in telling the story and sharing it, because I do think it's such a unique thing to do with the crew, with being out there for such a long time in nature as a human being that's being accustomed now to a very busy life and a busy society. So I'm really happy with how the film turned out, and that it's really telling our story, and I hope it inspires many people to push on or get out there, or even if it's for a small hike or a long hike or a small run. I've heard other people starting running because they saw the film and they were excited about it. So it's such a nice film, and I want to thank you guys as well for all your enthusiasm and being part of the whole adventure, and the end result is something to be really proud of.
Thank you. I can say confidently that Sunn and I would not have gotten into trail running, but we have both been on some runs since this project. So awesome. You do inspire people to get out there, and it's 100%. I hope the film can do the same as well.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing, guys. Like, definitely mirror Caleb's sentiments on that. I'm so inspired by this.
Like, I really love how you made the film, like the story that the movie tells. It really shows every single part of our adventure, shows what Karel does or did and what we did, and that it was really a team effort. And I think it really gets shown very well in the movie, like how it all worked. And it's such a team effort, and I really love what you did. Like, I've watched it twice already and can't wait to see it again tonight. I will watch it multiple times after this as well. But just amazing work by you.
Yeah, I like how you both also took it in that direction, but I just immediately also wanted to add how much I felt that you guys were also part of the team. And I think that's just for us such an comforting feeling as well, because I mean, we usually don't have cameras on us like for most of the year. So I feel the way that you guys have approached it really allowed us to just be ourselves, and I feel that probably has also helped you guys to get shots that maybe you wouldn't have had if we felt like we were being forced to do certain things, or like feel like we had to act. So I just really am really appreciative of how you guys approached the entire project, and it just only adds to everything that we have experienced. So thanks a lot for that. Yeah.
No, thank you guys so much, because that was such a big part of what Caleb and I discussed kind of going into this thing, was be a fly on the wall and capture the story as it unfolds, rather than fabricating this idea of what we think it should be. And, I really do feel like that comes through in the film. So, I can't thank you enough for, letting two strangers show up to your house in Belgium on a whim and then tag along with you guys for however many weeks we were out there now. I mean, it was such a special experience to be a part of it.
If you enjoyed this podcast and you'd like to hear more like it, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And also, please make sure to go see Pacing the Pacific and watch this journey yourself on Backcountry's YouTube channel. So, Karel, Anna, Kobe, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you guys.
My pleasure.
You can count on Nils being back next time. So that's enough of us. And cheers.